Chris, from a cybersecurity perspective, what can individuals do to protect themselves and their families better?
Mike, that is a great question, especially when it comes into family members. The most vulnerable members of a family are the young children, because typically people don't pay attention to young children's records or credit history. And that's the first thing that cyber criminals will do. They will go and impersonate a child and build a credit report on a child, because otherwise, because typically you don't monitor that information. So they will build this false credit record based on a child's social security and impersonate that child and make millions. So the first thing you need to do as an individual and as a family protector, if you will, is to be a great detective. You need to monitor all of your financial records. You need to monitor your financial transactions. You need to know what is happening in your world, so nothing will surprise you. The second thing you need to do is you need to recognize that all of this information is coming from social media and places where they offer all these free services, and you need to lock those down. You need to engage in social activities, of course, but you need to keep it limited to your friends. You need to make sure that the privacy settings in all of these places are tight. And finally, an important thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that your passwords are strong and difficult to guess. And interestingly enough, a lot of services right now will allow you to have a two-factor authentication, and as a pain as that may be, it is a very good idea to have two-factor authentication. And a lot of companies now also allow you to use passwords that have blanks in them. So instead of trying to have this convoluted password with uppercase and lowercase and special symbols and numbers, which are impossible to think, you can create a 20-character password that is a phrase that is meaningful to you. I grew up on Smith Street, number 12, for example. That has spaces, it can have upper and lower case, and it has a couple of numbers, and that's just as strong a password than anything else.
Mm-hmm. So strong password discipline is still an important part of cybersecurity.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
That's good to know. Hey, so if you're a member of the C-suite or a member of an executive board, what do you need to know at minimum about cybersecurity?
That's another great question. The first thing is that you need to be engaged. It is not something that is somebody else's problems. It's actually your problem. Moreover, if you're a member of a board, and especially as a lot of people start now getting involved with nonprofits and places that are meaningful to them, and they believe in the mission and become members of the board has due care responsibilities for an organization. It is actually the board of directors that sets what's acceptable risk. So therefore, if you're a member of a board, depending on the size of the company, you may want to have a cybersecurity committee of the board, but even if you're not that big, you most certainly need to be completely aware of the cybersecurity exposure of the organization. You need to set what's acceptable risk, and the one thing you can never do is brush it aside as IT's problem or some executive's problem. It is not. It is the executive suite's problem, and it is the board's responsibility to set and accept risk.
That segues perfectly into this last question, because in your presentation you mentioned that cybersecurity is not really the domain or the responsibility of the IT department per se. If it's not, then what part of the business is responsible for it, or how should the business be structured to make sure that someone is responsible for cybersecurity?
That's right. So that is a governance question. IT creates value. It is a value generator. Cybersecurity is a value protector. So you cannot have value protection reporting into or being the responsibility of value creation. Those two things are at odds, because IT wants to create the best and most wonderful application, wants to roll out the fastest and snazziest equipment, versus cybersecurity are the people that say, hold on a minute, let's evaluate that risk. Was cybersecurity considered in the life cycle of development? What are we gaining? What are we exposing? So cybersecurity is its own line of reporting. It should be reporting ideally, again, depending on the size of the organization, it should be reporting either to the CEO or COO or directly into the board. And IT is a parallel track. Those two are great partners. To be sure, they are great partners, but they don't report into one another. One protects the other and they have a conflict of interest if those two lines cross.
Interesting. I love your analogy there of parallel tracks. Never the twain shall meet.
That's exactly right.
Great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.